excited discussion.
Want to know some more fun facts?
Isn't it awesome to see some of your favorite content creators and favorite people, honestly, that you follow here on this tab, be a part of this amazing community called the Nerd Initiative?
The Nerd Initiative presents the Comic Press Podcast, hosted by JJ's Comic Stuff.
What is going on, everybody? Once again, you are joining us for a episode of the Comic Press Podcast. However, this is a special edition episode of the Comic Press. As you know, this is not our normally scheduled evening to broadcast. I am your host, Jeremy, aka JJ's Comic Stuff. I'm here with a special co-host today, DieselDanComics. And what makes this such a special episode today is not only are we doing a giveaway midway through the episode, which you guys should pay attention to because it's for a copy of Secret Wars issue number 1 inside of a nice magnetic comic book sleeve, which I didn't even know was a thing until recently. But the big focus of the episode today is the guys Tom and Ryan from ComicTom101 YouTube channel. If you guys are into comic books and you're on YouTube, there's no way you haven't stumbled across these guys' channel. And they've got a brand new indie series that they are getting ready to put out with Whatnot Publishing, and that's what we're here to talk about. What's going on, guys?
Yo, it's good to see you. JJ, Dan. Wasn't expecting Dan to be here. It's so good to see you, my brother. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, Dan had, a big part of setting this whole thing up. So I wanted to make sure to include him, have him on with us and co-host this thing with me.
Well, we love it because
any fan of Michael Turner on the wall situation, because I don't really, I don't go live a whole lot. It's different for me.
Well, we're excited. Any fan of Michael Turner and Witchblade is a friend of me. That's why I knew I'd be friends with Dan as soon as I met him. So,
hey, there it is, man. So before we get into the nitty gritty and the details of everything, I want to get an introduction to you guys. If people out there haven't heard of you before, who is Comic Tom? Who is FireGuyRyan? How did you guys get into being overall nerds, comic book enthusiasts, the whole shebang?
Who is Comic Tom?
I am a person, and we make a lot of comic book themed content over on YouTube. But I've been in like a part of the comic book industry since I was a kid. My dad got me into it. I grew up in New York. There was about a 3-year period where we literally lived in the back of a comic book store. There was an apartment that was connected in the back. And I grew up being able to play Magic, D&D, read any comics I want from the age of 7 till 10 years old. And it really introduced me to this big world, but it was all through my dad because he was a major geek growing up. He played music, played drums in a band called Oogla the Mock. And it's known as one of the first nerd rock bands in the world. And you can check him out on Spotify. He was actually part of the band for the first few albums, but the members are like family to me. And, my dad and them wrote songs about Aquaman and Star Trek and Werewolf by Night and Kang the Conqueror.
I hate that one.
You don't like the Kang one?
I hear you drove it one day when we went to a Comic-Con once, and it was stuck in my head all weekend. I was miserable, but that's how songs work.
Yeah, it's the song is literally about how everybody has been Kang the Conqueror, and it goes through all of these different people. So it's you're timely. Well, he's Kang, and it goes through all of them. So I knew this stuff when I was a kid, and I learned what adamantium was when I was 10 years old, and I understood it, and that just clearly influenced me long term, and it's what I made most of my adult life about, whether it was working to be able to buy comics and statues, or starting the channel so I can talk to my friends about comic books. And that's actually what bonded Ryan and I. We met in the corporate world in banking. I was his boss. I hired him. The main reason why I was so excited about Ryan, besides your great personality, and I knew you'd be great with the customers at the branch. You shared with me that you like comic books.
Sure, but that was probably 5 years after I discovered comic books in college. I was much later to the game than you and to a lot of our fellow comic nerds in this community. So I have a little bit of a different story to it. But sure, yeah, that's how we met. That's how this partnership began.
How did you get into comics though? Like you said, you just picked it up. What was the first thing?
Roommate in college. He had a shelf full of all the greatest hits, all the Alan Moore stuff, Batman, Year One, Arkham Asylum, Dark Knight Returns.
The important stuff.
He's actually how I got into Green Lantern too. So that guy, I owe a lot to that roommate of mine.
So we bonded as friends. I worked at a really stressful job for years. So because I was the boss, I was able to get away with shipping comics to my branch and statues, and I would routinely invite Ryan to come have very important sales meetings in which I would go through collections I purchased from eBay to show him the new statue I got, etc.
That is awesome.
I probably wasn't the best employee either. But no, we've been friends ever since. I also met Heron Heavens the same way, who's on, he does Whatnot with me and runs things with me over here. So those friendships lasted for a long time. And there was a point where I decided I wanted to try to give comic book dealing a shot and making content, things that I thought about for a long time. And I made one video. It was really tough. And it was so tough that I realized I need help, and especially with making sure that the scripts were right. Because at the time I was writing out the script and reading it on a teleprompter, which I don't do anymore. I did it for 2 videos. Those 2 videos.
I did not like doing that. Yeah, we tried.
We tried doing it. And those 2 videos, I reached out to Ryan right during that time. And I said, yo, do you remember, like, what did it sound like?
I was working overnight at the hotel and you knew I had a lot of time. I was just standing around at a computer doing not a whole lot of anything. And I could help edit this script you wrote for, I think it was a Hellboy video.
Yeah.
And I went through and I'd like fix some spelling and some periods and punctuation marks. I'm not really sure what I'm doing here, but here you go. This has no more typos in it for this teleprompter thing you're just going to read on camera. I didn't think I was doing a whole lot, but you roped me in.
I remember being in the car asking you after you had done that, and I was really pleased because you did more than fixing grammar. I mean, you're like, yeah, maybe you say this other word. I can say a different word here. And I thought, I'll just be in the video. Like, we have an idea. So he came over, and the first video idea we had, I'm like, yo, I got this comic book. There's this comic book that Subway produced, and it stars Jared Fogle. And you know where he is in prison for really bad things. And we made a video about DC's JLA meeting Jared Fogle and how he helped save somebody in this in the DC universe. And we thought it was just the funniest thing because,
wow,
comic books document so much history, kind of indirectly sometimes on purpose. But in this case, it was just one of those situations where it's like, oh, that's like a weird thing to talk about on the mic. And I thought it would be interesting to have the conversation with you. And I really enjoyed that video. And I think that started this improv that we started doing over 5 years.
It certainly did. I haven't gone back and watched
I do want to cut in a little bit. I remember the early days of Tom on Instagram and trying to make this format work on IG Live and doing all that before it, and you guys messing with cameras and audio and everything. I tuned into that stuff and was like, no, the audio sucks. And then you're like, I think we're moving this over to YouTube.
Yeah, it was,
but, that's one of those things. Like, how do you get better unless you get that criticism from people? Like, hey, man, your audio is bad. You need to fix that. Like,
yeah,
like we all go through that point where all our stuff looks and sounds terrible.
Yeah, I didn't realize the how much went into making content to the professional level that I wanted. I remember having this Best Buy. It would be considered like a step up from a tablet, but it had Windows 10 on it. And I remember watching a YouTuber I liked, and this would have been 8 years ago when I bought the laptop. And people at Best Buy are like, oh yeah, that YouTuber you like, they use this laptop. So I thought for years, oh, I just have to start making content and I can use this machine. And it turns out, when I was trying to learn Adobe, that every part of like my vision, I could not do on this computer. So all of a sudden I'm like, all right, well, I know computers well, but I don't know computers that well as far as like making, content and chopping stuff up in Adobe. I didn't even know how to use Adobe or Photoshop or After Effects, like all these things that it just took YouTube videos after YouTube videos and trial and error. And
my favorite thing to tell people when they are like, how do you do this? I say YouTube University, man. You can learn everything you need on YouTube.
And another thing, which, shout out to Heron Heavens for recommending this, because I was struggling so much with Adobe. She said, why don't you just post on Craigslist? there's got to be an editor out there who'll drive out and spend an hour with you and just give you a crash course. So I did that. And the person who showed up, his name is Slav. And he was brand new to America. Like, he was born in America, but he left when he was 10 years old and he went back to Russia. And then he came back and he was in his like year and a half being back in the States with his brother.
Oh, wow.
He loves to travel and go to all different parts of like different countries and jump off of cliffs. And he's a cameraman. His brother's an adventure guy. So they're very fascinating. And he showed up one day and this dude is towering over me. He's like 6'8". And I remember I had to explain what Netflix was. Like, he didn't understand what Netflix was, but he did understand that Spider-Man is awesome. And I'm like, and he loves Sonic for whatever reason. And he showed me how to do some things. And if anything, gave me a crash course that taught me that I need a lot more training. And believe it or not, Slav would become one of my best friends. And he is the editor to this day, 5 years later. And
that's awesome.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
And sure enough, he was part of the whole grind, putting sweat equity into it, teaching me how to do stuff. And over time we grew and we found, some success in this market. And, I'm surrounded by a lot of the people who helped kind of just jumpstart it. And none of us really thought we would get to a point like this where anyone would really care what we had to say on the mic.
God, no.
Right? We were just having fun.
I still don't think people really care.
Yeah, there's a couple, I think. Maybe a few.
I'd say definitely people care. I mean, you guys
Not
if you type in comic books, just for anybody who doesn't know, type in comic books to YouTube and see one of the first channels that pops up, no matter how many times you put it in there, is going to be ComicTom101.
We make a lot of content.
You cannot look for
for
comic book stuff and not see these guys.
Well, it means the algorithm's working on our side. So that's
it is.
good.
The bribes we did are working.
That's right. Yeah. All of our YouTube insiders helping us out on our tiny little channel.
So, as far as the comic book goes, what made you guys finally decide to make your own, as opposed to, getting into the dealing side of it, the speculation side, and just talking about it on YouTube?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to make a comic. What about you, Ryan?
I've always wanted to be a writer.
Right?
Comic book writer never really entered the equation until relatively recently, but yeah, same. There's been a writing bug somewhere in the back of my head for my entire life.
You showed me a video you made in college that you directed, at least or helped direct.
Oh, that like 4-minute video. It's not on YouTube anymore, by the way. I'm very upset about that.
But there was I don't remember much, but I remember there being a scene where, because it was like everybody was like they're pretending their finger guns are real guns, and they put audio sounds of like bam bam, but it's all their hands. They're like doing this. It was for school, so like they couldn't use like real guns. And there was a joke in there where you edited it together, and it was just really funny. And I can't even really remember what it was.
Credit for the technical side of all of that, but I did not do the editing or the no. We it was a film contest we did at college where you had 72 hours to think of the idea, write the movie, shoot the movie, edit the movie, and deliver the movie all over the course of a weekend. So we did this really ridiculous kind of political action spy send up of like action movies. And
threat level Midnight style.
Fake stuff. And we just edited in sound effects at the end.
But I remember you showed me like so passively, and I'm like, dude, there's parts of this that
we did win. We won the the audience prize and the judges prize at the screening when they showed all of these other ones that all the other groups in college, they did these serious artsy fartsy kind of poetic dramatic stuff, and then ours came up and we're talking about we got to rescue the president, and there were a couple like musical sequences. Oh my God, we gotta get out of here.
But dude, I saw that video, and the first thing I thought is like, oh, there's like some talent in this dude's brain, like more than just knowing comics and being able to speak articulate.
Right.
But yeah, I've always like daydreamed of doing comics, but I thought it would take a lot longer for me to be able to figure it out. But part of the journey, I became really close friends with Ben Templesmith, who lived out here in Washington for a long time. He doesn't live out here anymore, unfortunately, but he was somebody that, like, growing up, 30 Days a Night like changed how I view cinema. The comic book changed how I viewed reading like horror and my liking for it. Like, it started a whole different passion for me. And me developing that friendship, and then him offering, he's like, yo, if you ever want to make a comic, I'd be down. I love what you do, and I think you'd kill it. So that was it. That was all of a sudden a bug in my head. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I have an opportunity to do something with Ben Templesmith, who's one of my all-time favorite artists. And I think he's just a very
Eisner Award winner. He did
the art over Tom's left shoulder.
Right there.
And
Oh,
that book. Yeah, there you go.
thanks, Dan. I'm
See,
very proud of that.
Dan
cover.
comes in with the props.
So,
Before we
how it
get
started.
in, that's awesome though. Before we get in and show the trailer for your guys' book, I want to go ahead and get this giveaway going for everybody.
Let's do it.
So real quick, everybody, there's going to be a question pop up at the bottom of the screen. The first person to get that question correct in the chat will be the winner of the giveaway, and we will announce the winner at the end of the episode. And the question is, in this version of Secret Wars, there is a well-known printing error in the middle of the book. What is that error, and who is the character that's involved in that error? So there it is. First person
Not for me. Okay, yeah. I thought
to answer that question correctly in the chat will get a copy of Secret Wars #1 inside this awesome magnetic comic book sleeve, and it is a rare misprint issue, so it's probably worth a decent penny at least. So before we get any further, let's go ahead and roll this trailer so everybody can kind of get introduced to Crashdown.
Looks like we're coming on a pretty bad storm here, everyone. So if you need to, make sure you visit the bathroom now.
There's a bathroom on this thing? I've just been going in my suit. This mist is terrible. I can't see anything.
Stay focused. You trained for this. Do you see that?
I see clouds, I see lightning, I think I see water.
Collect yourself. Look at the radar. Land. We just course 9 degrees starboard at decreased thrust. One thing at a time.
Shit, you're right. How do you stay so calm?
This is the easy part. We're making history here. No matter what happens, we'll go down.
I don't know how you get much more of a hype comic book trailer than that. I
Right?
mean, that's pretty awesome.
We got to figure it out. I really want another trailer. I don't know if we've really talked about this on our own back here, but I want more. I want another video.
I
made.
mean, you need more because that is awesome. That is such a clever way to try and promote a comic book, man. I love it.
Oh, I'm very grateful. I'm glad you like it. You know, the feedback's been wonderful, and you know, we're just trying to do something really cool. You know, we love the collectible side. I love the speculation side. I love variants, incentive variants, all that stuff. But what I'm hoping is that we release something with like the main goal is that the person who has the comic will read it. We want to make sure that this book is something you enjoy, that you can experience some escapism, some horror, some sci-fi, a little body horror. You know, hopefully it sticks with you a little bit, and we're having a blast writing it. And every time we do writing sessions, there's just more that comes out, and I'm realizing we're tapping into something that I think we're supposed to be doing. You know,
That's a good way to put it.
That's really cool.
That's awesome. So as you guys are both writing this, do you guys ever like have ideas that clash at all? Are you guys sitting there arguing once in a while, like, dude, no, I don't think this should happen at all. What do you like? Why would you even say that? Like, are those conversations happening once in a while, or is it a pretty cohesive, streamlined process for you guys at this point?
Less than I would have thought. Let's put it that
Okay.
way, I guess. I would imagine that two writers would beef a little more and have more disagreements about how to do certain things, because ideas are, you know, it's weird for, you know, two people to kind of come up with the same stuff and go down that path together. But mostly that's how it's been for the two of us. There have been a couple times where we've had to argue a little bit, convince each other some stuff, but I think that makes the story better in the long run.
Yeah,
the final product.
like doing like co-writing the creative process, which there's a little bit of this that I think we get trained on with like doing scripts and prepping for shows and stuff, that, you know, it's never really about shooting someone else down. I never actually, I can't remember outside of some like little things like, oh, you shouldn't be like that, because if they're turned like that, they're not gonna be able to see the name tag, and then they don't know the name. It's like, you know, little things like that. Sure. That's
Right.
oh, we got to fix that. And but that's actually how it works, is like, well, one of us will have something, and it's to the point where the idea, I can't even remember who thought of the idea, because it was such a little thing. And then Ryan will go on top of it, or I'll go on top of it. And then all of a sudden we're making something together that when you look at it standing back a little bit, we did it together. There's no ego in this. And I've heard writers talk about this before, even recently, that when you co-write, it's not about who comes up with the idea. It's about making sure the idea is the best it could be. Because with comics, you have to think about things as minute as where this is going to land on the page. Is this on the page on the left or the right? When they turn the page, what is the reveal like? And there was a page in the story. We're not going to get into it because it's a pretty big part of it. And it didn't hit right. And I knew it. Ryan knew it. Our editor knew it. He gave us a note on it. We missed the note. We're new at this. And we had to redo the page. And it's like, yeah, that could have been frustrating because we had to do more things and pay more money and spend more time. And Ben had to draw more things. But at the end of it all, it's like, it's not necessarily an agreement. It's more like it's a collaborative effort to make it the best it could be. And when you know it could be better, and this is your thing that you're putting all this time into, you're grateful that those tweaks are happening. I mean,
do you remember there was a time at the beginning of this when we were like, all right, let's you write the first 3 pages or something, and I'll write the next 3 pages, and we thought we would be able to like kind of come together and bring what we came up with separately and make it work that way.
Impossible.
It's a group project. Yeah, I gotta come over. We gotta order some food. We gotta hunker down and just trudge through it. And sometimes we only get like a scene done. Sometimes, like the other day, we get like 4 or 5 or 6 pages done. It works out pretty well.
Yeah.
Are there any like maybe small nuances or anything like that of creating a book or things about creating your guys' book that you didn't really think about? Like maybe like word bubble placement or like credits or just like ad, I don't know if you guys are having ads in it, but any of that kind of stuff that you guys didn't have knowledge on or were surprised by.
The thing that comes to mind for me is how much of it is like a step-by-step process. Like we sit down, we come up with, all right, this is the general outline for issue 1. And then we go through and write out the script and get like the dialogue laid out and figure out how that works. And then we got to go through and make a pass and figure out, all right, that's panel 1. This stuff happens in panel 2. How many panels is this? Does this work? Are we totally screwed? Did we write too much?
Yeah.
There's a lot of repeat kind of stuff. You got to go through all this stuff multiple times and make sure that it all works. And then, that's when the magic of having an editor comes in. It's really nice to be able to send this off to somebody who had no say in the actual creation of it and be like, nah, you guys should try this. You should fix this part. And since Michael Calero is also a writer and artist himself, he brings a lot of really good input on both ends.
Yeah, he's the creator of Quested, but he's also I believe co-owner of Whatnot Publishing, Massive Publishing. He also is the artist on Alpha Betas. He is an incredibly talented individual. And when I found out that he would be willing to do the editorial, I knew we had someone good on the book. I didn't realize that we were as lucky as we clearly are to have him part of this, because he's someone who's an artist himself. And there are parts of this where he said, well, what if we did it in this way? 1 second. And he'll whip up a sketch and visually, introduce an idea. And then Ryan and I look at each other and go, we could have never in a million years figured that out because we're not artists and we've never done this before. All we have are years of reading comics. But the thing is when you read comics, you're not necessarily reading them to like figure out what would work for you in your comic if you write it one day. It's more about just enjoying the comics. So I'm actually having to refresh myself, reread Watchmen, reread parts of books, reread so many Ben Templesmith books to like now look at comics in a different way, which is really fun to do, by the way, because once you go to that, now I'm rereading stuff and I'm experiencing it differently,
Find little tips and tricks other people do. Like, how do you make someone feel like they need to turn the page? What sort of juicy tidbits can you put on the end of a page to go, oh, I got to turn the next page. And there you go. Before you know it, you read the whole book.
It's like you're putting a puzzle together a little bit,
Yeah, that's really cool.
So, I mean, the answer is yes. One of the first rounds of rough drafts, our editor's like, yo, I know it's a weird thing, but you never say the characters' names in the beginning. So it gets confusing when you do start introducing other people. And I'm like, it's as simple as one of our characters' name is Steve. It's like, hey, Steve, good morning, instead of good morning. It's that one little thing. You don't think too much about it, but then it's, well, you add character after character after character, and you only have 22 pages because you're trying to keep it real tight,
You notice when you read other comics that at the first page or so of every comic, it's like, Gambit, hand me that staff. Thank you, Storm. Let's ride.
Yeah.
Cyclops.
To the point where it almost makes you feel like they're talking down to you how much they tell you characters' names in the beginning of some of them, but it makes sense when you start thinking about it. Like if you've got all these extra characters you're adding in later on, it makes sense if your main characters are introduced multiple times first. Like,
well, both of us are big fans of comic tropes, which a YouTube channel I really recommend, and his whole channel is about tropes in comics, and I think it's hilarious. But also, I think it's put us in a position to triple question everything we do, because I don't want that to happen in this book. I don't want there to be these moments where it's like forced, but you have to force some things. So it's a delicate balance so that it flows right. And then on top of that, it's horror. You have to build suspense, tension, shocking reveals, and deciding, is the reveal half a page or a full page? Things like that, where you kind of have to remove yourself from the actual narrative that you're trying to tell sometimes and think about the reader. And when you're actually looking at a blank page on a Word doc, on a Google Doc, that's when things get real with it. You're like, wait, let's move this panel, let's switch it around. How does it read this way? And sometimes you have to just trust our editor, and we put a lot of trust in Ben because he's way better at this than we are. And I'm excited.
We're working on issue 2 right now, and there is there's a nightmare sequence that happens in issue 2, and we're basically just saying, here you go, Ben, like make it scary. You're like,
that's awesome.
Like a 1 or 2 page nightmare sequence. Thank you for everything you do for us. Make this scary, please.
But like with very specific direction too. Like, hey, we're thinking that, because Ben, he just can't do random.
She's not going to be given a speech, at a spelling bee or something. It's got to be like an actual, relevant nightmare. So yeah, there are guidelines, but
it's like storyboarding. So now we're not just writing a narrative that you need to be able to read and follow and have it make sense and be scary at the, if it works. But now it's like we're having to tell narratives through art, and we're not artists. And every time Ben does something, we're like, oh wow, we shouldn't have spent that much time trying to figure out how it's going to look on the page. That's actually probably been one of the most enlightening parts of it, is that we can trust in Ben to take the dialogue and do the perspective from an angle so that it works. And that timing, you get lost in it. I bought these books that like have blank squares in them, so you can kind of map out panels, like a lot of people have to do when they're mapping out their comic books. A lot of people just pay artists and say, hey, this is what I need, draw it just like this. Like, fortunately for Ben, or for us having Ben, we're able to kind of go back and forth and test things out and save some of that time, because we're new at this and we're not artists, and he's a living legend. Like, we shouldn't be the one telling him what to do.
Feels very weird.
It feels weird, but
Who the hell are we?
But it's working to our advantage, I think, because the book is coming out way better than I could have hoped, I think.
Yeah, I know writing issue 2, at least, we're kind of stepping back and going like, we don't have to stress so much. This is an artist thing. Let's write this dialogue. Let's get the things we need to on the page, and trust our team to kind of take the rest. And issue 1, we didn't really know that much at that point. Yeah. But once we started getting final art back from Ben, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, we don't have to worry so much. We got a good crew with us.
Yeah.
I was saying, speaking of artwork, we sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was just gonna say, just a quick comment. That's the beauty of comics. You're letting, a lot of the time you can just allow the art to tell the story instead of so much dialogue being on the page. So yeah, Ben seems like he's got a handle of it. So can't wait to see those panels.
Me too. Well, we do have some teaser footage of some of the character designs that we kind of snagged from Comic Tom's Instagram. So if Michael, our fabulous producer and co-founder of Nerd Initiative, could pull that clip up for us, that would be great.
We wrote a comic book with horror living legend Ben Templesmith, and he sent us the first character designs today.
How many details am I giving
Don't
on
give
this
details.
person? Okay.
This is just an important
Curly
character.
hair tied back, darker eyes. Okay. All right, so I'm swiping backwards now. All right, this is our second soldier character.
Soldier number 2.
Oh, man.
No details.
They have faces, though.
These are your children,
They're people.
Ryan.
They're people now. They're not just, names in our head. Next. We didn't even name these guys because these guys aren't going to survive the crash.
You can't say that, dude.
The pilot. All right. He looks tough. I like this guy.
He's a tough guy.
Ooh, that's the suit. Okay, that is a full design of their outfits that they're wearing here.
That's right.
Okay, this is the doctor's assistant guy.
Yeah, handsome.
He's handsome.
He's handsome.
That's
so
important. He's got to be a little dreamy. Allison, here we go.
This is our main character per se.
This is the focal character of our comic. This makes me want to just like cancel all my plans today and just write with you, which I think is what we're doing anyway today.
Kind of doing that.
So those outfits, the characters, like just the style of the facial structure and everything about those characters, it definitely screams Temple Smith. So how awesome was that feeling getting those initial designs back from him?
Well, that was a authentic reaction from Ryan. He had never seen those before until that video.
Didn't you try to show me? You tried to send me something.
I
in
did,
advance,
and
I was
he
like,
said, "Wait." And I
Yeah.
appreciate you waiting because you see the excitement in Ryan's face because that's what it felt like on my end getting that too.
You just also showed me like a half hour ago, right before we went on camera, one of our is it final?
That was final.
A
Yeah.
final cover that we got, a variant cover that we are going to have for this book too. So we're starting to get all kinds of different art trickling in for stuff, and it's feeling very real. It's very real. It's very looming. This book is a real tangible thing very soon.
Is there any way to share who might these variants be coming from?
Leave that up to him.
I can drop a couple names. I can drop.
Ooh, drop it. Drop it.
We're getting an exclusive here on the Comic Press.
Well, of course, you got Ben Temple Smith. You know, he's going to be cover A on all these bad boys. You know, he's part of this.
We have at least one variant from him too, right?
Oh, of course, yeah, at least one, probably more. He actually hit me up today and said, "Oh, I'm gonna have to come up with a different idea." Johnny Desjardins kind of did something I was thinking about doing. So you know, Johnny Desjardins is one of my really close friends, and we've been partnering up on stuff for over a year now. And he's going to be a variant artist for likely all 3 issues. We got Zuorzu, which is looking very promising. David Mack, very promising as well. But other people, we're gonna have to kind of keep under wraps because it's not 100%, and we're literally working on that. Like I approved things this morning, and we've began the process aggressively within the last few weeks. So we're waiting. I have a couple people that actually more than a couple, 4 that I am praying to Thor that I can pull my any leverage that I can pull here. Any Comic Tom is asking for something I've never asked you before. It'd be freaking amazing if you can do it types of deals because I've never done that, and it's my first book. So our first book.
I've reached out to a couple people too, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's a crazy humbling experience, especially when we've seen some of the thumbnail sketches come in from these artists, and it's like, I guess that's part of the process. They got to make sure that we like what they're doing for the variant. So we've given the thumbs up, I think, for all of the sketches we've gotten back. So we should get something a little more solid here pretty soon.
Michael Calero, he's the editor, but he's also an amazing artist, and fortunately, he's down to do a cover as well, which I thought it's really dope that half of the kind of creative team of this comic.
Cover now.
Yeah, just you and me, man. We just
doing that.
Can you imagine?
I can't draw.
No, that's awesome though. So, okay, my next question is Whatnot Publishing. I know you guys have had a relationship with Whatnot for a very long time, pretty much since they started out. What made you decide to go with their publishing label rather than like one of the bigger indie labels that are out right now, like Scout Comics or an Image or a Dark Horse or something like that?
It was probably, really, this was actually planned to go through a different publisher. We had actually talked to a couple. Rather, this was before Ryan was actually a part of it. I was entertaining it, trying to figure it out, but the process hadn't started yet. I had ideas, and Ben was game, and I had some conversations. So I knew I had a path forward if I wanted to get things rolling. We went to Denver, and we flew down to cover the launch of Whatnot Publishing. We were invited down to interview everybody that was there, the creative team. We interviewed, and you can actually pull this up. If you type in Whatnot Publishing, you're going to see our videos on Ninja Funk, our videos on Exiled, our videos on Quested, our videos on Alpha Betas, our videos about with AKA Mr. Bolo, who's one of the heads of comics over at Whatnot, and then like Kevin Rodatelli, Michael Calero, who are the heads of publishing. Different groups that are all working together, right? And when we covered it and we saw what was happening in the care and their plan and their rollout.
Do you remember I remember specifically, we got the little preview ash can for Whatnot Publishing that had samples of all 4 of their first 4 titles. And we read through the sampler, and we got to talk to each of the creative teams for each of those books. And somewhere off camera, we were like, "This is cool, but there's no horror story in here. There's
where's the scary?
There's nothing scary in your guys' launch lineup."
Because that's our thing. We love horror. Like superhero stuff. I grew up with. It was my favorite. I was more of a DC kid growing up. Reading a lot of Vertigo with my dad, so a lot more of the mature stuff, Swamp Thing, Hellblazer, stuff like that. But once I started getting into horror comics, that became my favorite genre of any medium, like movies too. Like I'm that's actually probably my biggest passion is like next to comics is horror. Feeling disturbed and icky and scared and in a controlled, safe,
right.
I get a lot of enjoyment with that, and I share that with a lot of friends and colleagues. So when we covered Whatnot Publishing, we happened to like. We were interviewing them because we wanted to know about the company, but I didn't realize we were kind of interviewing for ourselves too.
It was almost like a job interview, I guess, looking back in that sense, because they were like looking at us, I guess. Did they reach out to you after the fact?
It was actually, it was actually like after the interview and after we were done and we were uploading footage, Michael and Kevin approached me and said, "Hey, we know that you had an idea with Ben Templesmith, and we just want you to seriously consider joining this side of things with us." Because Whatnot was helping so much with like us navigating how we're growing the business and integrating live selling was of such a huge challenge for a year that when Whatnot came in, it was like, oh, this is changing comics forever. Like this right here, this app is exactly what the industry needs, what LCS owners needs, what like it's going to change the industry as it has already begun. So when I was approached about it, the idea was there that they were like, hey, you can just like not just join this side of things, but if you want to start now, let's talk. And the fact that they saw so much potential, it got me intrigued. But the thing that pushed me over the edge is that I was at a bar after con, as people do, and I'm sitting there with Tyler Kirkham next to me, just riffing about comics because he's so damn cool. And I'm looking over my shoulder here, and I see Ben there, and I see Michael Calero and Kevin Rodatelli all sitting at the same table. And Michael is talking to Ben about his art and about stories back when he was doing the convention grind and how difficult it was and the things that he would do. And he's talking about Ben about how Ben gave him some advice and he took that advice and that's what built so much. And he was attributing so much of his success to a creator he respected. And when I saw that respect with Ben, I saw like low key, the same feeling that I have about Ben's art and how amazing of a creator he is. And I said, oh, if that's a person that could be working with us, like that's what we need. We need someone who looks at Ben the way that we do, because the best thing we can do with this comic book outside of write a narrative that's cohesive and that makes sense and that's good is that we respect Ben's art and also flex Ben's art and just have him go nuts because he's such a talented mofo.
Oh, 100%.
I'm such a big baby that if I want to say that if this was my project, and I want to ask you guys this, if it was me in this situation, I'd be crying my eyes out every day with just like so much joy. So have you guys had that overwhelming feeling at all? Or you just guys been locked in on making a comic that, until you have the finished product or anything? I don't know. I know I'd be like every day, oh my God, thank you so much.
Well, I'm very humble. I'm very grateful.
For me, it still doesn't feel real. It still feels like this is some weird kind of extended dream I'm having in bursts. But like in that video, for example, the short that we showed earlier, when we got the first look at the characters, and that was the first time we got any sort of art back from Ben Templesmith, and I was like, oh, these were just names on a paper until right now. Now there's faces behind them, and then we got the I don't want to say final art, but we're getting art in for the first issue, and it's like we're reading the book we wrote, and it's like, oh, this is weird. This is no longer just a script and a document, it's now a final comic. And I still don't think it's going to feel real until I get like my own, pre-ordered copy from my LCS on my own pull list. So, and even then, it probably still will just feel like a book I'm reading.
Yeah.
I'm having a very impostery syndrome kind of out of body experience.
Same. And I've also been told that that's very common with this process. Imposter syndrome has been brought up on multiple conversations because I want this to go well. I want to make it something that the fans of our show and our supporters who made everything possible for us are like, that they enjoy, that they like sincerely like it and want to keep reading And I think that pressure and how much work it is, it makes those moments not happen as much where you're just like on cloud 9 as much as you would think you would be. But there are moments like what you saw in the video, or even today when we're getting final art back and we're going, we can take a breather right now and just go, we're doing this. Like the first thing I did when I saw Ryan today is I said, yo, are you ready? I didn't want to send this to you because you were driving. I didn't want you to crash your freaking car. And I just handed him my phone and I put my arm around. I'm like, dude, we did this. And it's like, it's those moments, those are so real. And that's what you're describing. It's like, but it comes in micro doses over time. And it's so, like, I knew this would be hard, but I didn't know how hard until we were doing it. And now I realize, like, it's so labor intensive, and all the respect that I have for creators, which was very, very high, it just went like whoop, because it's really difficult to do this, but damn, is it fun.
There's also this feeling like we finished our script, we sent it off to the editor, to Michael, and we didn't get an email back that was like, yo, we got to talk. You guys this isn't good. You guys need to we need to really fix this. You know, we got a response back that was basically like, yeah, this is good. Send it to Ben. Let's start drawing. We're like, are you sure? Like, this is our first time. We're not really super confident, I guess. We feel good about the story we're writing, but like we figure like, oh, of course, we're probably making so many mistakes. We don't know what the hell we're doing. But there's just this vibe of the people on our team are on board with the ideas that we're having, and we're not really getting any pushback in that sense. So I feel like it's a good sign in terms of like the interest level of the story that we're crafting in our head, and how messed up it's going to be over the course of the 3 issues.
It's pretty messed up, dude. I've had some people read a little bit of it just to kind of gauge their response, and some people who don't dig horror, and their reactions were exactly what I wanted. I'll tell you that.
Disturbed, grotesque reactions on their faces.
Like, oh, it's dark. That's some dark stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be. I'm excited for people to see it, because like it's such a strange thing to be able to riff about something that isn't comic books. Like, it's a comic, but like most of the time when we hit the mic, we're talking about other people's comics, other people's stories, movies, television shows, all this kind of stuff. But when we're making a horror comic, it's all about like, how do you make this scene elevated? How do you raise tension and suspense? And it's a different way to think. And it's not something that I do every day. And it's definitely taxing. Like, we'll go and record for the show. We'll do things like we normally do. We'll do a sale, and we'll get the mail call ready, and we'll prep stuff, and we'll get in comics graded. We're doing this like the normal stuff that people see what we do on Instagram. And then we go, all right, we need to park 4 hours today. And let's just grind out some pages. Let's figure this out. We have some challenges we got to overcome. And it feels like you're turning your brain off. I'm like you ever like
definitely not off. It's shifting gears for sure.
A part of your brain is what I mean, though. Yeah. Like when I took a artist, like a art class in college once, like very briefly, and the book I had to read was like learning how to draw with the right side of your brain, because one of the ways that you can learn how to draw quickest and perfect the medium, on a professional level, is by not trying to just like copy something that you're looking at. It's better to copy the shapes, the lines, flip it upside down and draw it. And that's actually what the first 6 weeks were. It was like, hey, draw this plant, but take the picture, flip it upside down, and draw it in that way. And you have to remove the plant part of it, which is your left side of your brain, which is telling you that's a plant. So the leaf should look like a plant. But in reality, you have to flip that around and go, no, the leaf doesn't look like a plant. It looks like a bunch of dagger edges, and it looks like a triangle here. You think about it differently. And that's kind of what it feels like when you're writing you're versus what we do on YouTube, and scripting and planning and performing. It's all right, we got to be creative now. And by the end of the 4 hours, I'm surprised how far we get every time, even if it's slow moving. It's like, oh, but this is going to, hey, we did this one panel, but this just made 3 pages 10 times easier. So it feels like you did one small step, but really sometimes all of a sudden you do 5 steps forward. And by the end of the 4 hours, my head hurts. I have like a raging,
like, we're done.
Like, we have to we look at each other, we go, I think we're done, because it's, you're getting into, how would this person say something? Well, let's see what they said before. What is the inflection? What is their reason for saying?
You start to overanalyze everything.
And then you run the risk of doing damage.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not really fresh right now. You know, we've been writing for a while, so let's stop. I'll go home and sleep, and we'll crack this open again some other time. And here we are.
That's awesome. So are you guys like, you said this is going to be like a 3-part series, you know, after this is finished up, are you guys doing a Crashdown 2? Are you going to venture off, try a different genre? What are your plans for after this initial first run is over with?
We've talked so many times about like there's too many ideas here. Like
Pandora's box.
We need
That's
a
what I said.
issue 0.
That's the thing with comics.
We need an issue. If we had an issue 4, we would do this or this or this. But you know, you gotta draw the line and end your story somewhere. We do have a potential outline, kind of rough idea for what the following time would look like after these 3 issues are done.
Yeah.
What happens next? You know, just in case. I think we're going to worry more about the first 3 issues and making sure we get a real comic out in the world first before we start thinking sequels and stuff. But I remember when we were tossing around, like at the very beginning, trying to figure out what kind of story we were doing, we settled on horror, like immediately, no questions, no discussion, horror, but we need to do a horror story. And then it took a little longer than that, but sci-fi horror was what came up out of that. And, you know, we tossed around some other kind of horror ideas that we might want to work on, some other genres, subgenres to play in, but those are all way, way, way down the road, I think.
Maybe not as long though as we think. You know, like that's the one thing I've realized is like I didn't think we'd be this close to having a comic book this soon. So
sure.
I'm not putting it you know, like now it's actually really hard to not think about other things, you know, whether it's the comic that we're currently writing and wanting to do maybe a prequel or a one-shot idea and or what happens later. But just different now that we know the process and we have a horror sci-fi, every other horror thing that I like, I want to be part of now. You know, I want to write something that has like, you know, to Ryan's chagrin, supernatural stuff. But also a slasher would be really cool. And in my head, I can't help but think about who my lead slasher character is going to be. Like who's going to be my Michael Myers?
You know, I'm wearing a Maniac in New York shirt right now.
Exactly.
But,
you know,
we're all about horror comics.
So no, I mean, I hope there's more, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think both of us are experiencing the same thing. I don't speak for you, Ryan, but we really want this to be something our fans like and our supporters enjoy. And I don't want to take away from the effort of these books thinking about the future. But there are a lot of times during our conversations of the creative process where we're like, oh, that would be a good prequel. That would be a good one shot. Oh, wow. Even part of this book, even we had ideas on a page and it's like, hey, we have this idea for a story, but we also have this idea for a story and we have this idea for a story. And then all of a sudden they all combined into one. And now 3 different stories we thought we could do, it's Crashdown. So throughout this process, there's been a lot of other ideas that have come up that we're like, let's just write it down, but we'll come back to it. Oh my gosh, it just doesn't stop. You start thinking like in that way though, and you can't. It's like you're training a muscle, you know, over and over again, and then all of a sudden, you stop going to the gym for a week, and you're like, wait a minute,
yeah.
I gotta get back on the treadmill. I gotta. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I stopped.
Oh, that's it.
It's George R.R. Martin, and he likes to talk all the time about the different ways of writing, of being an architect or a gardener. And I didn't really experience that till we started writing Crashdown. And it's like you plant the seed, and then the story grows from there on its own, versus you rigidly outlining every single step, every single part of the process. And I think we're seeing a lot of those seeds pop up and be like, whoa, we need to do some kind of side story. You know, these people are living on this planet or attempting to live on this very dangerous, scary planet. But what happens to the people who they left behind? You know, what happened in the time right before they left? You know, some sort of time periods that we might have to skip over in the need to tell the story we want to tell. There's some blanks in there that are like, well, maybe we should, like, we don't have space in these 3 issues, but like, I want to put something in there now. I want to look at that story and that blank space and figure out what's actually happening there.
That's awesome. Well, I think now would be a good time to go ahead and reveal our giveaway winner. Let me go through here and see what Michael had to say about who got this correct. All right. So the winner of the giveaway for Secret Wars #1 Inside the Magnetic comic book sleeve is Hillbilly Comics, who had the correct answer first today with Galactus, and he was blue instead of his normal pink and white.
It's true.
Honorable mention, however, goes out to, let me find her name real quick again.
Tessa.
Yes, it was Tessa, because she got it first, but she got the colors mixed up.
She doesn't deserve it anyway.
Oh, Tessa's a good friend of the show.
I'm teasing her.
Yeah.
We appreciate you, Tessa.
But congratulations, Hillbilly. You've got that copy of Secret Wars issue number 1 inside that magnetic sleeve coming to you. Get a hold of me off of air, and we will get all your information together and get that sent out to you. Tessa, you're not going to go home empty-handed, though. We are going to go ahead and send you out a little bit of Nerd Initiative swag just for your troubles. So everybody's a winner here on the Comic Press. We don't like to say anybody loses here.
Tessa's colorblind.
That's funny. Tessa put on there. Tessa is colorblind.
Yeah, that wasn't just me saying it. She said it.
Oh no, like, you know, we bring it up on the screen, man. We keep our receipts. It's all good. But before we let you guys go, and we'll play the trailer again for everybody to see in case they missed it on our way out. Is there anything else you guys want to plug? Is there anything you want everybody to check out? Let the people know where they can find you online, all that fun stuff.
You can find me everywhere. ComicTom101, ComicTom101.com. If you want to support the show, give me an excuse to send you comics every month. We make a lot of really dope ones. You can find me on Whatnot as well. We're bringing the heat. We've given away an ASM 300. We've given away a Marvel Spotlight 5. And at the end of this month, I'm giving away a House of Secrets that's sitting in front of me, 92. We're trying to shake stuff up, introduce live selling to everybody, and trying to just get comics out there. Like it's a tough medium to be able to like create things out of, and we want to be one of the like bigger advocates of like reading comics in hand. There's nothing wrong with digital, but and I read digital.
I love digital.
We love our digital, but like we also have such a strong passion for the physical form of comics. So but that's where you can find us. And Ryan, yeah.
And Butch. You can find him on our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, we stream together on Whatnot. We have like a whole bunch of people who are part of it. You can also find like, over on our YouTube channel. It's not just us, and it's certainly not just me. I think what makes this channel so special is that you get a mix of different individuals. Ryan reads more comics than I think like almost anyone I know. And when we riff a lot, we improv a lot, and we bring this like different type of entertainment to the mic than other members that I work with in different ways. Where Russ Bright is an LCS owner who provides like major insight on the weekly grind of what it's like to work with publishers and to handle an LCS that's been thriving for over 5 years. And then we also have the Golden Age Guru, who's been part of the channel for years as well. And he is our in-house specialist for the old and the gold. And, I don't pretend to know everything. I immediately sought out those who are mentors and friends of mine to be part of this channel. I think that's what makes our channel strong, is that we've diversified our group here so that we can really bring a unique take on any situation, especially as something as what could be as complicated as comic collecting.
For sure.
What about you, Ryan? Where are they going to find you?
Instagram, FireGuyRyan, all one word. I have a YouTube channel, but I don't really do a whole lot on there anymore. I'm very busy here working full time with this guy. I guess we should probably mention our book comes out in July.
Yes.
Right.
That was going to be my next question. When could people see that on shelves or sites or wherever it's going to be available?
If all goes well, we should be in previews in April, which is like in a month.
Next issue of previews,
which is nuts. And then we're looking at a July release to get it done in time for San Diego. And it's 3 issues. So July, August, September will be the plan. And then October will be at New York City Comic Con. And we'll just be doing the grind, trying to introduce Crashdown to as many people as possible. And, I can't wait to see what the community's reaction is. And I hope you like it.
Oh, well, you can definitely be assured you will see a review coming from this channel. So
I look forward to it.
As soon as we get a hold of that, we will definitely be checking that out. That's not even a question.
I'm not ready for that part. Other people's comments. It's crap. It's crap.
This comics makes no sense.
Dan, where can the people find you, Dan?
Me, you can find me on Instagram at DieselDanComics. You can find me on TikTok at DieselDanComics. If you don't know who I am, I make silly videos and put them on the internet. And it's all about comic books. I do all the comic book content that I possibly can. I'm just a guy that loves comics.
There it
It's a
is.
good follow. You guys should do it.
Yeah, do good follow. I get my Top Cow and my updates on a lot of indie comics from Dan over here, and he's killing the game.
Yeah, if you want to know
There
about
you go,
crappy
and
90s books, then Dan's your guy.
No, actually, hey Dan, I want to tell you, I saw you posted a very underrated cover the other day. It's the negative space. It's Patrick Gleason, I believe, Witchblade cover.
Ah, yes, I did see that.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about, right? The orange one. No, is it?
Yeah,
Is that Patrick Gleason? No, it's Patrick Gleason. Isn't it? That one. Yes.
John, yeah. It's
So,
three first names. John Tyler Christopher.
Oh my gosh. I said Patrick Gleason. I mixed it up. John Tyler Christopher.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused. I'm like,
It
Patrick
didn't
Gleason.
sound right as I said it, but I was actually I thought of you when I was on top of the pile of comics that we just bought. We bought a giant collection of books, and I opened a box and we found 15 copies of that book, and I thought of you when I opened that up. So when I saw you posted that after,
You know how long I've been looking for that book out in the wild?
And of course, Comic Tom finds a whole box of them.
I know.
It was good. We got real lucky on that one, but it's a very underrated cover. Good taste, my friend.
And then you guys can find me at JJ's_comic_stuff everywhere on social media, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, real quick, we're going to show you guys that trailer again before we sign off. Well, we'll actually sign off to the trailer. And once again, congratulations, Hillbilly Comics, for that grand prize winner. Tessa will be sending you out some Nerd Initiative merch. Get a hold of somebody, either myself, Dan, or anybody at Nerd Initiative about getting your stuff, and we'll get it out to you. This is the Crossover Comics Podcast. Thank you very much, guys, for being guests today for this special edition episode. And let's roll that trailer one last time.
Thank you so much,
everybody.
Looks like we're coming on a pretty bad storm here, everyone. So if you need to, make sure you visit the bathroom now.
There's a bathroom on this thing? I've just been going in my suit. This mist is terrible. I can't see anything.
Stay focused. You trained for this. Do you see that?
I see clouds, I see lightning, I think I see water.
Collect yourself. Look at the radar. Land. Adjust course 9 degrees starboard and decrease thrust. One thing at a time.
Shit, you're right. How do you stay so calm?
This is the easy part. We're making history here. No matter what happens, we'll go down.